Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant, staring at the endless darkness of space through the main view screen. 3 months had passed since the disaster at Proxima Station. 3 months since humanity's mighty fleet had been crushed by the alien hegemony in a battle that lasted only 4 hours. 3 months since Jake had watched 200 human ships burn while he escaped with the only surviving capital vessel. The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of life support systems. Jake's crew worked at their stations with grim determination. They all knew the truth that Earth Command refused to admit. Humanity was losing this war badly. Every week brought news of another colony falling to the aliens. Every week brought more refugees fleeing toward Earth with stories of death and destruction. Captain, Lieutenant Commander Lisa Brooks called from her tactical station. Her voice was steady, but Jake could hear the tension underneath. Long-range sensors are picking up something big. Jake turned toward her station. Lisa had been his tactical officer for 5 years. She was young, maybe 30, with short brown hair and sharp green eyes that missed nothing. Before the war, she had been one of the fleet's best strategic minds. Now she was one of the few left alive. "Show me," Jake said. The main screen changed to display a tactical map of the new Colorado system. Red dots appeared at the edge of the display, moving steadily toward the inner planets. Jake counted them quickly. Too many. Far too many. 230 contacts, Lisa reported, all showing hegemony energy signatures. They're heading straight for New Colorado. Jake felt his stomach drop. New Colorado was home to 3 million civilians. It was also humanity's primary source of rare earth metals needed to build new ships. If the aliens took that world, humanity would lose any chance of rebuilding their fleet. "Time to intercept?" Jake asked. 18 hours at their current speed, Lisa replied. Chief Engineer Ryan Kelly looked up from his station near the back of the bridge. Ryan was a big man with graying hair and hands permanently stained with engine grease. He had kept the Defiant running through 3 months of constant repairs with nothing but spare parts and determination. "Captain," Ryan said, "I've got news about the quantum drive." Jake had been waiting for this moment for weeks. The quantum drive was their secret weapon, a piece of experimental technology that could phase the ship between dimensions. In theory, it would make them nearly impossible to target. In practice, it had been broken since the battle at Proxima Station. "It's ready," Ryan continued. "I can't promise it won't tear the ship apart, but it's operational." Dr. Amanda Cross spoke up from the science station. She was a thin woman with blonde hair pulled back in a tight bun. Her blue eyes held the intense look of someone who had been working without sleep for days. "Captain, I've been studying the hegemony technology we captured at Proxima," she said. "I found something important. Their fleet coordination system has a weakness." Jake moved to her station. "Explain." Amanda pulled up a holographic display showing the internal structure of a hegemony ship. They use a centralized command network. Every ship in their fleet is connected to a few command vessels. If we can disrupt those connections, their entire fleet will lose coordination. "How many command ships?" Jake asked. "Usually 3 to 5 for a fleet that size," Amanda replied, "but they'll be heavily defended and positioned in the center of their formation." Jake looked at the tactical display again. 230 enemy ships against 1. Even with the quantum drive, the odds were impossible. But those 3 million people on New Colorado were counting on someone to help them. Earth Command had no other ships to send. The Defiant was all humanity had left. Communications Officer Tony Garcia suddenly straightened at his station. Tony was young, barely 25, with dark hair and nervous energy. He had joined the crew just before the war started. "Captain, I'm receiving a distress signal from New Colorado," Tony said. "The orbital defense stations are under attack. Hegemony scouts have already reached the system." Jake closed his eyes for a moment. The aliens were moving faster than expected. Those defense stations wouldn't last long against even a small hegemony force. The civilians on the planet below were already in danger. "Lisa, how long would it take us to reach New Colorado?" Jake asked. 16 hours at maximum speed, she replied. "But Captain, we can't fight their entire fleet alone." Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. These people had followed him through the darkest months in human history. They had kept fighting when others had given up. They deserved better than a suicide mission. Ryan, is the quantum drive stable enough for combat operations? Jake asked. I honestly don't know, Ryan admitted. Each time we phase shift, it puts enormous stress on the hull. We might get 5 jumps, we might get 50. There's no way to predict it. Amanda, how would we identify their command ships? Jake continued. They'll be larger than the others and positioned for maximum communication range, she said. I can modify our sensors to track their command signals, but we'll have to get close. Jake made his decision. He had sworn an oath to protect humanity when he accepted his commission 20 years ago. That oath didn't have an exception for impossible odds. Tony, send a message to Earth Command, Jake ordered. Tell them we're engaging the hegemony fleet at New Colorado. Tell them to prepare defensive positions around Earth in case we fail. Sir, Tony said quietly. Should I tell them anything else? Jake thought for a moment. Tell them that humanity doesn't surrender. No matter what happens to us, others will carry on the fight. The bridge fell silent as everyone absorbed what Jake had just decided. They were going to attack a fleet more than 200 times their size. They were probably going to die. But they were going to make the aliens pay for every human life they had taken. Lisa, begin plotting attack vectors, Jake ordered. Use hit-and-run tactics with the quantum drive. We'll phase in, hit their biggest ships, then phase out before they can respond. Aye, Captain, Lisa replied, her fingers already flying over her controls. Ryan, I need everything you can give me from the engines, Jake continued. We're going to push this ship harder than it's ever been pushed. You'll have it, sir, Ryan said with grim determination. Amanda, keep working on those hegemony weaknesses. Any advantage you can find might save lives. Yes, Captain, Amanda nodded. Jake turned to the main screen, which now showed their course toward New Colorado. In 16 hours, they would face the largest enemy fleet ever assembled. They would probably die in the attempt, but they would die fighting, and maybe that would be enough to inspire others to keep the fight alive. All hands, this is the captain, Jake announced over the ship's communication system. We're heading into battle against overwhelming odds. I won't lie to you about our chances, but I will promise you this. We're going to show these aliens what humanity is made of. We're going to make them remember the name Defiant. As the ship accelerated toward what might be their final battle, Jake allowed himself one small smile. The hegemony thought they had broken humanity's spirit at Proxima Station. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The Defiant dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the New Colorado system. Captain Jake Morrison gripped his command chair as the ship shuddered from the violent transition. Through the main view screen, he could see the orange glow of New Colorado's sun in the distance. Between them and the planet, space was filled with the burning wreckage of human defense stations. Report, Jake ordered. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Brooks worked frantically at her tactical station. The orbital platforms are gone, Captain. I'm reading debris from at least 6 defense stations. The planet's surface installations are still operational, but they won't last long. Hegemony fleet position, Jake asked. 230 enemy vessels in standard attack formation moving toward the planet, Lisa replied. They're not even trying to hide. They think they've already won. Dr. Amanda Cross looked up from her science station. Her face was pale, but her voice remained steady. Captain, I'm detecting massive energy readings from their ships. They're preparing to bombard the planet's surface. Estimated time until they reach firing range is 40 minutes. Jake felt anger building in his chest. The aliens weren't just planning to conquer New Colorado. They were going to destroy it completely, along with every civilian on the surface. 3 million innocent people were about to die unless he could stop an entire enemy fleet with one ship. Ryan, status on the quantum drive? Jake called to his chief engineer. Chief Engineer Ryan Kelly checked his readings one more time. It's as ready as it's going to be, Captain. But I'm warning you, each phase shift puts enormous stress on the hull. We might get lucky and manage 20 jumps, or the drive might explode on the first try. Understood, Jake said. Lisa, I need you to identify their command ships. Those are our primary targets. Lisa studied her tactical display carefully. The hegemony fleet was arranged in a complex formation with smaller ships protecting larger ones. I've got 3 possibilities, Captain. All of them are in the center of their formation, surrounded by heavy cruisers. Communications Officer Tony Garcia suddenly straightened at his station. Captain, I'm intercepting enemy communications. They're using standard tactical frequencies. I can translate most of it. What are they saying? Jake asked. Tony's face darkened as he listened to the alien transmissions. They're calling this a cleansing operation. Their fleet commander, someone they call the Fleet Prime, is boasting that humanity will be extinct within 1 solar cycle. Jake's hands tightened on his chair. The aliens weren't just fighting a war. They were planning genocide. Every human colony, every space station, every settlement would be destroyed. Earth itself would eventually fall to their overwhelming numbers. Tony, can you identify which ship their Fleet Prime is commanding? Jake asked. Working on it, Captain, Tony replied, his fingers dancing across his communication controls. Their command frequencies are heavily encrypted, but I'm picking up stronger signals from the largest vessel in their center formation. Jake studied the tactical display. The hegemony command ship was enormous, easily 3 times the size of the Defiant. It was surrounded by dozens of smaller vessels, all bristling with weapons. Getting close enough to attack it would be suicide with conventional tactics. Amanda, tell me more about their coordination system, Jake said. Dr. Cross pulled up a holographic model of the enemy fleet. Each command ship controls approximately 70 to 80 smaller vessels. They're like the brain of a hive mind. If we can destroy all 3 command ships simultaneously, their entire fleet will lose coordination. What happens if we only get 1 or 2? Jake asked. The remaining command ships will adapt quickly. They'll probably scatter their fleet to prevent further attacks. We'll lose the element of surprise. Jake nodded grimly. They would only get 1 chance at this. The quantum drive would let them appear anywhere in the enemy formation, but once the aliens realized what was happening, they would adapt their defenses. Lisa, I need 3 separate attack plans, Jake ordered. We're going to hit all 3 command ships in rapid succession. Calculate firing solutions for our antimatter torpedoes. Lisa's eyes widened. Captain, we've never fired those weapons. In combat, the yield calculations are theoretical. What's the estimated damage potential? Jake asked. Each torpedo carries enough antimatter to crack a small moon, Lisa replied. But we don't know how they'll interact with hegemony shield technology. Then we'll find out together, Jake said. Ryan, I need maximum power to weapons and the quantum drive. Strip power from everything else if you have to. Aye, Captain, Ryan replied. Life support will be minimal, but we'll have enough power for the attack. Jake activated the ship's internal communication system. All hands, this is the captain. In 5 minutes, we're going to phase directly into the enemy formation. This will be the most dangerous thing any of us have ever attempted. I want everyone strapped in and ready for combat. He paused, looking around the bridge at his crew. These people had followed him through 3 months of running and hiding. Now they were about to face the entire hegemony fleet head-on. I know. The odds look impossible, Jake continued. But I've seen what this crew can do when everything seems hopeless. We're not just fighting for New Colorado today. We're fighting for the future of humanity. Every person on Earth, every colonist in human space is counting on us to show these aliens that we don't give up. Tony suddenly looked up from his station. Captain, the enemy fleet is accelerating. They'll reach bombardment range in 30 minutes. Then we go now, Jake decided. Ryan, activate the quantum drive. The lights on the bridge dimmed as enormous amounts of power flowed to the experimental drive system. Jake could feel the ship vibrating as reality itself began to bend around them. Through the view screen, space started to shimmer and twist. Phase shift in 10 seconds, Ryan announced, his voice tight with concentration. Jake gripped his command chair harder. In a few moments, they would materialize in the middle of the largest enemy fleet ever assembled. They would be surrounded by hundreds of alien warships, all of them ready to destroy the Defiant instantly. All stations report ready, Lisa called. Out. Weapons armed and targeted, Amanda added. Communications monitoring enemy frequencies, Tony reported. Drive stable and ready, Ryan confirmed. Jake took a deep breath. Execute phase shift. The universe exploded around them. Reality twisted and folded as the Defiant slipped between dimensions. For a moment that felt like forever. They existed, nowhere and everywhere at once. Then space snapped back into focus and they were surrounded by alien ships. The hegemony fleet stretched out in all directions, their dark hulls gleaming in the light of New Colorado's sun. The enemy vessels were sleek and organic-looking, like enormous insects made of metal and energy. Some were small and fast, others were massive, floating fortresses bristling with weapon turrets. "We're inside their formation," Lisa reported, her voice filled with amazement. "Range to primary target is 2,000 kilometers. "Fire everything," Jake ordered. The Defiant's antimatter torpedoes streaked across space like miniature suns. Jake watched as they impacted the largest hegemony, command ship. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the enemy vessel simply ceased to exist, consumed by a ball of pure energy that lit up the entire fleet. "Direct hit," Lisa shouted. "Command ship destroyed." But their victory lasted only seconds. Alarms began screaming as dozens of enemy ships turned their weapons toward the Defiant. Space around them filled with alien energy beams and missile swarms. "Phase shift now," Jake commanded. Once again, reality twisted around them as they slipped back into subspace, leaving the confused hegemony fleet behind. They had struck the first blow, but the real battle was just beginning. The Defiant materialized in empty space far from the hegemony fleet. Captain Jake Morrison felt sweat running down his face as he watched the tactical display. The alien formation was in chaos, ships spinning in confusion as they searched for their invisible attacker. "Damage report," Jake called out. Chief Engineer Ryan Kelly checked his systems quickly. "Hull stress is building up fast, Captain. That phase shift put cracks in 3 bulkheads. I can fix them, but each jump makes it worse." Lieutenant Commander Lisa Brooks studied her tactical screen with growing concern. "The enemy fleet is adapting, Captain. They're deploying some kind of detection grid around their remaining command ships, and they're spreading out their formation." Dr. Amanda Cross looked up from her science station, her face pale. "Captain, I'm detecting new energy signatures from their ships. They're using quantum scramblers. If they get those systems online, they'll be able to track us even in subspace." Jake felt the weight of command pressing down on him. 1 command ship destroyed, 2 remaining. But the aliens were learning fast. They had maybe 1 hour before the enemy figured out how to counter the quantum drive permanently. Communications Officer Tony Garcia suddenly tensed at his station. "Captain, I'm picking up increased chatter from the hegemony fleet. They're calling for reinforcements from 3 other systems." "How long until those reinforcements arrive?" Jake asked. 6 hours, maybe 7, Tony replied. Jake did the math in his head. Even if they destroyed the remaining command ships, more enemy fleets would arrive soon. The aliens had hundreds of ships scattered across a dozen systems. Humanity had 1 damaged warship with an experimental drive that might fail at any moment. "Tony, what else are they saying?" Jake asked. Tony listened to the alien transmissions for several minutes. His expression grew darker as he translated. "They're talking about us, Captain. They call us the Ghost Ship. Their fleet prime is angry. He's never lost a command vessel before." "Good," Jake said grimly. "Fear makes people make mistakes, even aliens." Lisa checked her tactical display again. "Captain, the 2nd command ship has moved to the center of their formation. It's surrounded by at least 40 escort vessels now." "And the 3rd?" Jake asked. "Staying on the outer edge of their fleet. It looks like they're trying to bait us into attacking the heavily defended one while the other coordinates their response." Jake studied the enemy formation on the main screen. The aliens were smart. They knew the Defiant would have to attack both remaining command ships to complete their mission. But now each target was protected by massive numbers of escort vessels. "Amanda, how much time do we have before their quantum scramblers are fully operational?" Jake asked. "Maybe 30 minutes, Dr. Cross replied. "After that, our phase shifts will become predictable. They'll know exactly where we're going to appear." Ryan Kelly looked up from his engineering station. "Captain, I need to tell you something about the quantum drive." Each time we phase shift, we're tearing holes in the fabric of space around the ship. If we do too many more jumps, we might not be able to return to normal space." Jake closed his eyes for a moment. They were running out of time, running out of options, and running out of luck. But 3 million people on New Colorado were counting on them. Earth itself was counting on them. "Lisa, I need a new strategy," Jake said. "We can't attack both command ships separately. They're too well defended now." Lisa worked at her tactical station for several minutes. "Captain, what if we don't attack them separately? What if we make them come to us?" "Explain," Jake ordered. "The outer command ship is trying to stay safe by keeping its distance. But if we attack the heavily defended one first and make enough noise, the outer ship will have to move closer to coordinate the fleet's response." Jake began to understand. "We make the first attack deliberately messy. Draw their attention. Then when both command ships are close together, we phase in between them and hit both targets simultaneously," Lisa finished. It was a desperate plan. They would have to survive long enough in the middle of the enemy fleet for both command ships to move into position. The Defiant would take enormous damage. The quantum drive might fail completely, but it was their only chance. "Amanda, can you identify exactly where their command ships will need to be for maximum coordination?" Jake asked. Dr. Cross ran calculations on her computer. Based on their communication patterns, both ships will need to be within 5,000 kilometers of each other to maintain fleet control. Any further apart, and there will be delays in their coordination network. "How long can we survive in normal space surrounded by their entire fleet?" Jake asked Lisa. "Maybe 2 minutes with our shields at maximum," she replied honestly. "After that, we'll be taking hull damage faster than our repair systems can handle." Ryan Kelly spoke up from his station. "Captain, I might be able to buy us more time. If I overload the reactor and channel everything to shields and weapons, we could last maybe 4 minutes. But after that, the reactor will shut down automatically to prevent a core breach." Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. They all knew what he was thinking. This would be their final attack. Win or lose, the Defiant wouldn't survive another battle. "Tony, send a message to New Colorado," Jake ordered. "Tell them to prepare their planetary defense systems for possible hegemony survivors. And tell them that humanity fought to the end." "Yes, sir," Tony replied quietly. "All hands, this is the captain," Jake announced over the ship's communication system. "We're going in for our final attack. I want everyone to know that serving with you has been the greatest honor of my life. Whatever happens in the next few minutes, remember that we're doing this for every human who ever lived and ever will live." Jake paused, thinking of Earth, of the colonies, of all the people who would never know what happened here today. "Ryan, begin reactor overload sequence," Jake ordered. "Aye, Captain, reactor at 120%. We've got maybe 10 minutes before automatic shutdown. Lisa, target both command ships. Prepare to fire everything we have. All weapons. Armed and ready, Captain. Amanda, monitor their quantum scramblers. Tell me the moment they lock onto our position." "Understood, Captain." Jake gripped his command chair as the Defiant prepared for its final battle. Through the view screen, he could see New Colorado glowing peacefully in the distance. Those 3 million people would never know how close they had come to destruction. They would never know that their lives had been saved by a single ship and a crew that refused to surrender. "Execute phase shift," Jake commanded. Reality twisted around them one last time as the Defiant prepared to materialize in the heart of the enemy fleet. This time, they weren't planning to run. This time, they were going to finish what they started, no matter the cost. The universe exploded back into focus, and they were surrounded by more enemy ships than Jake had ever seen in one place. Weapons fire immediately began converging on their position as alien vessels turned to attack the ghost ship that had been haunting them. "Both command ships are moving into coordination range," Lisa reported. 30 seconds until optimal firing. Position. "Hold steady," Jake ordered as the ship shook under enemy fire. "Wait for the perfect shot." The Defiant's shields flared bright blue as hundreds of alien weapons hammered against them. But Jake's crew held their positions, waiting for the moment that would determine the fate of humanity itself. The Defiant shook violently as hundreds of alien weapons pounded against her shields. Captain Jake Morrison, held onto his command chair as sparks flew from damaged control panels around the bridge. Through the chaos, he could see both hegemony, command ships moving closer together, exactly as Lieutenant Commander Lisa Brooks had predicted. "Shields down to 60%, Lisa reported, her voice steady despite the ship bucking like a wild animal around them. "Hull breaches on decks, 4 and 7. 20 seconds until optimal firing position," Dr. Amanda Cross called out from her science station. Chief Engineer Ryan Kelly's voice came over the intercom from the engine room. "Captain, the reactor is redlining. I'm pushing every system beyond." "Safe limits. We've got maybe 2 more minutes before everything shuts down." Jake watched the tactical display as the 2 massive hegemony command ships continued their slow approach toward each other. Each vessel was easily 3 times the size of the Defiant, surrounded by escort ships that filled the space around them, like angry wasps. But they had to get close enough to coordinate their fleet's response to the ghost ship that had been terrorizing them. 15 seconds, Amanda announced. Communications Officer Tony Garcia looked up from his station with wide eyes. "Captain, I'm intercepting panic transmissions from the enemy fleet. They're calling us the Death Ship. Their Fleet Prime is ordering all vessels to concentrate fire on our position." "Let them come," Jake said grimly. "Lisa, the moment those command ships are in position, fire everything." 10 seconds, Amanda counted down. The Defiant's shields flared bright white as more enemy fire struck them. Jake could feel the deck plates vibrating under his feet as the ship's structure groaned under the assault. Warning lights flashed red throughout the bridge, and the smell of burning electronics filled the air. 5 seconds, Amanda called out. Jake gripped his chair harder as he watched the tactical display. Everything depended on the next few moments. If they succeeded, humanity might have a chance. If they failed, New Colorado would burn, and Earth would follow soon after. "Now," Amanda shouted. "Fire!" Jake commanded. Every weapon on the Defiant discharged simultaneously. Antimatter torpedoes streaked across space like miniature suns while particle beams lanced out toward both command ships. The Defiant poured everything she had into that single devastating volley. The first command ship simply vanished in a ball of pure energy. The second command ship's shields held for exactly 3 seconds before they collapsed, and the massive vessel broke apart in a cascade of explosions that lit up half the enemy fleet. "Both targets destroyed," Lisa shouted over the noise of battle. Immediately, the effect rippled through the hegemony fleet. Without their command ships to coordinate them, the alien vessels began firing randomly. Some shot at the Defiant, others fired at each other in confusion, and many simply stopped moving entirely as their guidance systems failed. "It's working," Amanda said with amazement in her voice. "Their coordination network is completely disrupted. They're attacking each other." Tony Garcia listened to the enemy transmissions with growing excitement. "Captain, their fleet is in complete chaos. I'm hearing reports of ships requesting orders, but no one is responding. Some vessels are already retreating to hyperspace." Jake allowed himself a moment of satisfaction as he watched the once mighty hegemony fleet tear itself apart. But his celebration was cut short as Ryan Kelly's voice crackled over the intercom. "Captain, reactor shut down in 30 seconds. All systems are failing. The quantum drive is completely dead." Jake looked around his bridge at the crew who had followed him into this impossible battle. They had done it. Against all odds, they had defeated an enemy fleet more than 200 times their size. But the victory had cost them everything. "Shields failing," Lisa reported. "We're taking heavy damage from the remaining functional enemy ships." Jake made his final decision as captain of the Defiant. "All hands, abandon ship. Get to the escape pods now." "Captain," Lisa said, "there aren't enough escape pods for everyone. Standard procedure is for the captain and senior officers to go down with the ship." "Not today," Jake said firmly. "That's an order, Lisa. Take Tony and Amanda to the escape pods. Make sure the crew gets away safely." Ryan Kelly's voice came from the engine room one last time. "Captain, I'm staying with the ship. Someone needs to make sure the reactor doesn't breach and damage the escape pods." "Ryan, that's not necessary," Jake said. "Yes, it is," Ryan replied. It's been an honor serving with you, Captain. Jake felt tears in his eyes as he realized what his chief engineer was doing. Ryan was sacrificing himself to make sure the rest of the crew could escape safely. It was the kind of courage that defined humanity at its best. "Lisa, get everyone else to safety," Jake ordered. "That's my final command as captain of this ship." Lisa stood at attention and saluted. "It's been an honor, sir." She grabbed Tony and Amanda, practically dragging them toward the escape pod bay. As the ship continued to shake apart around them, Jake watched them go, knowing he would never see them again. Jake activated the ship's communication system one last time. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the UES Defiant to any human vessels receiving this transmission. We have engaged and defeated a hegemony fleet of 230 vessels at New Colorado. The threat to this system has been eliminated. Tell Earth Command that humanity does not surrender. Tell them that we fight until the last star burns out." He paused, thinking of Earth, of the colonies, of all the people who would continue the fight after the Defiant was gone. "To my crew, who showed the galaxy what human courage looks like, to the people of New Colorado, who are safe because of your sacrifice, to everyone who will carry on this war after we're gone. Remember that we chose to stand and fight when surrender would have been easier. Remember that one ship can change the course of history if the crew has enough determination." The bridge was empty now except for Jake. Through the view screen he could see the scattered remains of the hegemony fleet. Less than 90 enemy ships remained functional, and most of those were fleeing into hyperspace. The threat to New Colorado was over. Jake opened a channel to the planet's surface. "New Colorado Control, this is Captain Morrison of the Defiant. The enemy fleet has been neutralized. Your people are safe." The response came immediately, filled with emotion. "Defiant, this is New Colorado Control. We're reading massive damage to your vessel. Do you need assistance?" "Negative, New Colorado. Take care of my crew. They're heroes, all of them." Jake sat back in his command chair as the Defiant finally succumbed to the damage she had taken. Systems failed one by one as the ship's structure gave way, but through the main view screen, he could see the escape pods moving safely away from the dying vessel. 6 months later, Admiral Kate Sullivan stood before a memorial wall on Earth. The names of 800 crew members were carved into black stone, including Captain Jake Morrison and Chief Engineer Ryan Kelly. The Battle of New Colorado had become legend throughout human space. The Defiant Doctrine was now taught at every military academy. Hit-and-run tactics, asymmetric warfare, and never giving up no matter the odds. 50 new quantum-capable warships had been built using the technical data Amanda Cross had transmitted before the battle. Kate read the final entry from Jake's personal log, which had been recovered from the ship's black box. "We are outnumbered, outgunned, and probably outmatched, but we are human, and that means we never give up. That means we fight until the last star burns out. That means we win." The hegemony, once considered invincible, now spoke of humans in whispered, fearful tones. They called them the Ghost Fleet, warriors who could appear from nowhere and turn impossible odds into victory through sheer determination. Humanity's war for survival had begun with the sacrifice of one ship, and one crew who refused to let their species go quietly into the night.